common misconception about IELTS speaking is that you must make your answers complex to get a high score. I would argue that the more you can make it sound close to how people really discuss things, the better it will be. Today, I've prepared for you some very natural and common phrases you can use in part 3, the most challenging and perhaps the most important part of your exam, to expand your answers and improve your score. We'll talk about the odds. No, I don't mean your chances. I mean the phrases that can help you open your answers, develop them when we want to discuss certain aspects or look at a topic from different points of view, defend your point of view or show agreement or disagreement with something, even with what the examiner said, and show your point of view by giving examples. Speaking about the odds, what are the odds of you getting a high score in IELTS speaking? I think the odds are getting shorter by the day. This means that your chances are getting better. Ready to improve them further with our today's phrases? It's Asia. Let's get started. Let's start with our open category. I know that lots of IELTS test takers start off by saying something like, "That's an interesting question." And it's quite possible that the question is interesting, but usually it sounds like something the test taker has learned to say without really meaning it. We could also go for the straightforward, "in my opinion" phrase as the opener, but if you really want to say something native speakers often use and would therefore make you sound natural, try one of these. If you ask me, I'd say that I think that on the whole. For sample answers, we'll be using common part 3 questions related to a famous person. Well, you might have already heard that part 3 is not really a discussion, but more of an interrogation, where the examiner asks questions and you answer. The examiner will choose questions from 2 out of 3 sets according to how you're rated up to this point. If the examiner believes you to be a 6 or so, then you'll likely get questions from the easier set 1 followed by set 2. For what the examiner calls strong candidates, your good 7s, 8s and 9s, the questions that push you a little more from sets 2 and 3 will be what you get. So if your part 3 questions are really hard, that's a good sign. Let's start with a set 1 question. What kinds of people are famous in your country? Here is how we can open the answers. If you ask me, all kinds of individuals become famous these days. I'd say that it's mostly those involved in show business and sport that are most well known. I think that on the whole, in my country, it's young pop stars that are in the news all the time. If it's a point of view you want, try. To my mind, to my way of thinking, as far as I'm concerned, I think most people would agree that any of these will go well with our set 2 question. Let's talk about being famous. Why are people so interested in the private lives of celebrities? To my mind, it's because of social media that seems obsessed with these people's lives. How about a question asking us for our point of view? Should celebrities be allowed their privacy? As far as I'm concerned, a celebrity has as much right to his or her privacy as any citizen. I think most people would agree that the right to privacy is fundamental. Notice that even when we're using the I pronoun, we're not talking about ourselves. After opening with a general statement, It's common for us to develop our thoughts by concentrating on certain aspects or looking at something from different points of view. So here are some useful phrases. The point is that, in the end, what it comes down to is, what I'm saying is that, the way I look at it is, it depends on the way you look at it. There are several ways to look at this. Here I've included a very idiomatic phrase, what it comes down to, which means what it basically means is. And interestingly, it's a little redundant. In my example, I've already said in the end, which means the same thing. But remember, when we speak, we often repeat things for emphasis. So let me show you how we can use some of these phrases to help us answer our set 2 questions. The first is about why so many of us follow the lives of the rich and famous. Well, the point is that so many people find the lives of the rich and famous so exciting. Perhaps what it comes down to is that their lives are lacking something. And on the subject of privacy, what I'm saying is that of course everyone is entitled to their private life. But the way some look at it, once you become famous, your private life is no longer your own. In Speaking Part 3, particularly if your speaking skills seem to be quite good, the examiner may challenge your point of view and push you to disagree, to defend your point of view, which may not be very pleasant psychologically. When we turn to our notion of defend, it's good to remind ourselves of 2 things. Number 1 is that the examiner is not being personal. They're not expressing their views, but they're just trying to get you to talk. So don't take it personally. And this brings us to the second point. Be polite, never direct. Although it may be alright to say I don't agree in certain situations. Saying something like I don't agree with you or you are wrong is pretty strong, especially the second one. Let me show you some phrases that can accept the other point of view and politely disagree with it. I don't see it quite like that. I know what you mean, but. I see what you're getting at, but. In a way, yes, but there are other ways to look at it. I wouldn't go so far as that. From the way I see it, I think a lot of people miss the point here or fail to see the point here. And here are some examples. Again, notice how we can combine some phrases in effective ways. Let's take this statement on the subject of talent or the lack of it. It will be something like this. To be famous these days, you don't need to have any talent. Do you agree? Again, this is a set 2 question. Well, I know what you mean, but I don't see it like that. I think we need to take a broader view of what the word talent means. Going on to set 3 with the hardest speculative questions. Let's talk about fame and society. To what extent do celebrities act as role models for the young? Young people often have their heroes, someone they can look up to. For example, a football player can become a role model that they would like to emulate. This answer may lead to a follow-up question. Examiners should ask at least a couple of follow-up questions in part 3 to help the discussion flow more naturally. Look at this possibility. What if the hero behaves badly? I mean, there are cases. Doesn't that change everything? How can you defend your point of view? I see what you're getting at, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that a celebrity will be a bad influence on a young person. Or someone could say, I think a lot of people miss the point here. It's not for artists, for example, to be concerned about if and how their behavior or the way they dress or whatever has a bad influence on the young. You may disagree with that. What you think doesn't really matter as long as you deliver your thoughts in a clear and polite way. Our fourth category, show, is the one where we can give examples. Always remember to make them general, not personal. Let me show you 2 examples. Think if they are acceptable. Most people I know tend to read those gossip columns in magazines about the rich and famous. I love reading about film stars and all their scandals. Well, the first is fine, but the second is too personal for part 3. Now, let's look at a few useful phrases we can use. You only have to look at, just look at. You don't have to look very far to see that. Take, for example, a case in point is, I think we all remember. Examples are always welcome. Here are some possibilities. You only have to look at the millions who follow their pop idols on social media like Instagram in this country. Or, you don't have to look very far to see examples of famous people acting badly in public. If you're wondering if you can use you this way when you are speaking to the examiner, yes, you can. This is a common way to talk generally, and it doesn't imply that you're telling the examiner where to look. Here are some more. A case in point is the fact that someone with hardly any talent whatsoever can become rich and famous by just promoting themselves on social media. I personally would disagree with that, but it doesn't really matter. I think we all remember that case when that Hollywood star was arrested for dangerous driving. I'm sure there was a case like that or two. We've looked at a small number of possible phrases to use, and keep in mind that many of these phrases have some flexibility. For example, you can change the subject and say, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as most people are concerned. Today we've touched on the need to expand your answers and avoid being personal in part 3. But if you'd like to learn what is really required to do well in this, I will argue, most important part of your speaking test, watch this video here. And thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!